We have a long list, Ms. Kaiser, of folks that are here to make presentations to the task force.
Yes, that is true.
Can we get to that now? Because
Absolutely.
we're 3 hours and 31 minutes into this.
All right, so let me, that's not what I wanted. Our first one will be Bruce Miller. Thank you, Mr. Miller, and you will have 3 minutes, and I'll be your timekeeper.
Can you all hear me? Well, Chairman Miller knows where I'm coming from. At the October meeting, Mr. Costello gave a clear and compelling presentation of what was achieved in Austin through the establishment of an independent commission. This is the procedure that the Mayor's Race and Culture Task Force recommended that the City of Fort Worth consider in its 2018 report to the city. Mr. Costello explained the mechanism for creating an IRC. He showed how it resulted in growing political engagement in Austin.
Mr. Miller, if you could get a little closer to that microphone.
And resulted in 72 candidates running for 10 positions. Thank you. Part of the charge of the Fort Worth Redistricting Task Force is to recommend redistricting procedures to the City Council. Therefore, it was puzzling and disappointing that the chair appeared to rule out any consideration of this possibility for the Fort Worth before the task force members even had the opportunity to hear Mr. Costello's presentation. Maybe that's changed, especially since at the previous meeting, some task force members were speaking up in favor of the approach. This occurred in the October meeting as well, where Mr. Espino, Mr. Bradshaw spoke in favor of an IRC, and Mr. Shore pointed out that this was the direction that other cities were following. Nearly all of the public comments following the October meeting strongly favored the creation of an IRC. Today, 14 states are engaged in creating either independent or nonpartisan commissions. We believe it would be a mistake for the task force to turn its back on this promising approach. It will lose credibility with the public since independent redistricting is now coming to their attention. As part of its recommendations, the current task force could easily include at least the consideration of the creation of an independent commission. This would not be a serious distraction from its goals of choosing criteria and public outreach. Regardless, independent redistricting should be included as a component of any outreach efforts. Otherwise, the present group will be painting an incomplete picture of what's available and occurring elsewhere and losing credibility in the process. And this is already taking place. Citizens for Independent Redistricting hopes that you have the tenacity and courage to follow this path. Either way, we urge the task force to include in its report that it heard numerous public comments at these open meetings in support of an IRC, and that not one person spoke in favor of the council retaining that power. Our city council members deserve to know the depth of support that still exists for an independent commission in Fort Worth, and that the idea did not die with the Race and Culture Task Force. So thank you for your attention.
Mr. Ellison.
Thank you, Ms. Kaiser. I'm not going to use my charts. I'm sorry to send you all those charts, but I came here, I was going to speak about the Interstate 820 rule, but you all have dispatched it pretty quickly. My name is Byerwick Ellison, so I'm going to change horses and talk a little bit about a little different topic. I will say that some months ago, I sat across the table from a city council member who gave a very spirited defense of the Interstate 820 rule. I wasn't expecting that. It was kind of a surprise. I thought it was low-hanging fruit and it ought to go, and you have all decided that, and I will be very interested to see how the council receives your recommendation. The arguments went along the lines of what Mr. Schur spoke about, the tensions between the outerlying areas that have homes with high prices and pay a significant amount of property tax versus where the money is spent on the older parts of the inner city. And that, for me, underscored an essential point that when you redistrict, the subtext is also money. You're not just carving up votes, you're also carving up money in the form of taxpayers, in the form of businesses, in the form of developers with projects that are ongoing, and at the most sophisticated level in the realm of donors with deep pockets. So this connection between redistricting and money has a long history. You can look just as recently as this summer when a member of the Los Angeles City Council, Jose Huizar, was arrested by the FBI and charged with 34 counts of accepting up to $1.5 million in illicit monies and gifts. And redistricting was a major part of what enabled him to do this. In the 2012 cycle, he was rewarded with the political patronage of getting a large swath of downtown at Los Angeles that has a lot of ongoing projects, and a couple of other districts were decimated. So this idea of redistricting as a political tool is not theoretical, or the idea of an IRC as good government is not theoretical. It's very practical. And if you read about Mr. Huizar's case, I don't know why you would want to entrust a city council with the sole authority to draw maps without oversight, without transparency, without any other entity involved. So that's kind of my take on independent redistricting commissions. And again, I will be very interested to and hope that they receive your comments and the decisions that you've made today with open arms. Thank you very much.
Mr. Willoughby.
Use either one? Is it better?
Use this one, would be better.
All right. Hi, I'm Willoughby in District 5, and the first thing is, I want the cameras on the task force as if I was calling in on the phone. I don't want the cameras on me. I want the people to see the expression of the people of the task force, please. Okay. The first thing, there's so many things here. I do videos myself. They're at City Council every Tuesday night. There's a council meeting. You'll see a video from me about this, okay? First thing off here is that I don't know about y'all, how many of y'all knew about the charter, how many of you voted on it or what, but it was done wrong. The 2016 charter was not advertised. There was no votes. There was less than 1% that voted for 2 more council members. They had 2 more council members for 1% is wrong. Now, here's the thing why it wasn't advertised just like this. It wasn't advertised. Right here is a picture I just took a while ago on 30. It's a billboard. The city puts up Fort Worth welcomes NFR, okay? They can pay for that, but they can't put a billboard up for this or when they did the charter. They didn't put them up. Council members use billboards right here. Here's another one, a council member. She's running for council because billboards work, not Facebook, not Nextdoor, and not that. Look at the City Times here. Here's City Times. You know what you got in here? You're under worth knowing. Just a little headline in here. It doesn't have a borderline, doesn't have dates. They had 4 years to put out dates and stuff for people. Okay, they didn't do that. What I'm asking the council now are the task force. We don't trust City Council. That's why you're getting asked for another meeting. But I'm okay with you if you do what your words say. We work on actions and not words. Words lie. And that's what we're watching right now. You should be going before council on the 3rd and tell them to stop this charade. Council has not answered any questions about the 2 members. We've asked for 3 years. I've got 4 questions. They won't answer. What kind of deal is that? This is getting railroad. If they won't answer 4 freaking questions. In other words, the thing should be put back on the ballot. There's time for 2 more council members. Require 20% of the population to vote for 2 more council members. If 20% don't want to get off the couch and vote for 2 more council members, don't spend $250,000 of taxpayer money for nothing. That's one of the questions I've asked council. How does it benefit us with 2 more? They don't answer. I'm not asking you to answer. I ask council to answer. They don't answer. It doesn't benefit us $250,000. If 20% won't get up and vote for it, we don't need 2 more council members. Put it on the ballot. It will fail. And you won't be redistricting for 2 council members right now. You'll be redistricting fair. Because the way the mayor goes at this, by the amount of people, that's no good. If we brought council members in by the amount of people, we'd do it the same way the police and the fire department. We did this by a vote. Am I in the way? And it wasn't advertised. It's tainted from the beginning. So you put it back on the ballot. You require 20% to vote for 2 more council members, and you put it on billboards. You advertise it first, okay? And then we're on the right track. And there was one other thing I
I'm
wanted.
sorry, your time is up.
My time's up?
Your
Well, that
time
was
is
a
up.
quick 3 minutes, I'll tell you.
That's,
If this goes forward, it's a sin.
okay. I'm going to let Mr. Gibson get up and get our screen back the way we want it. And our next speaker's on the phone, so let me give him a call. Thank you, Jim.
Hello, this is Max.
Yes, you're on the line with the redistricting task force. You can go ahead with your comments.
Okay, thank you for calling back. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Max Krockmall. I'm just calling to urge you to consider your charge of creating a fair process for redistricting. We know from examples of other jurisdictions and a lot of research in the field that the way to do that is through an independent redistricting commission. So I would urge you to resist the political pressure to allow the city council to draw their own districts to their own advantage and instead follow the best practice of democratic governments everywhere and create an independent redistricting commission and report back that the criteria that you want is for that, for the process to be truly independent of political influence and to not allow the politicians to draw their own districts any longer. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
And next up will be Fernando Flores. He's also on the phone.
Hello.
Mr. Flores, this is Mary Kaiser. You're on the line with the redistricting task force. So please go ahead with your comments.
Thank you so much. I want to add clarification to what I said on the 22nd of October. And here's my recommendation. I recommend to the Fort Worth City Council Redistricting Task Force that it recommends to the mayor, Betsy Price, and the city council members to please reconsider their decision to oppose citizen independent redistricting. This was one of the recommendations made by the Race and Culture Task Force after a year and a half of public input. The promise was made to the public that all recommendations would be implemented. There is no justification for not implementing this or even considering. There was no discussion at all, and that's my recommendation. They need to open discussions and reconsider their decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And next is Pastor Kenneth Jones, who will also be on the phone.
You have reached the voicemail for Pastor Kenneth Jones Jr. He is unable to take your call at the moment.
All right, we'll try him again. Our next speaker is Jackie Cox, and she is here in person. Yes. I will do my, yes, I will do my best here.
I'm Jackie Cox. I moved to Fort Worth in 1956. It was the first time I ever had lived in a place that was totally segregated. I went to all-white schools. When I went to stores, there were signs that said colored and white for the drinking fountains and the restrooms. I grew up in a world that I thought was really cruel and pointlessly cruel and exclusionary. By the time we got to 1965 and got the Voting Rights Act, and those things which were put into place after the Voting Rights Act that lead to your mandatory considerations for redistricting, I had hopes that we would make progress more rapid than we had made, but we did make some progress. This last year has been a discouraging time. Once again, I saw people with guns in the streets, menacing those who were demonstrating. There are so many hurts to be bound up now that what happens with redistricting can be really crucial to how we move forward or whether we move forward in the years to come. This last year, in 2019, when Tatiana Jefferson was shot and killed by a police officer in her home, there was a huge reaction in Fort Worth, and I think it was a justified reaction. And then we had the pandemic, and people were out less until there was a viral video of George Floyd gasping, "I can't breathe," with a police officer with his knee on his neck. And there was again an outcry. We need justice and we need change. But what might have been, well, what we hoped for would be more change in the city of Fort Worth and the way it runs its police department got kind of muted because the pandemic drove everybody home and we had meetings online instead of in person. And the Police Officers Association gave a lot of money. I don't know if you can see this chart, but they
do have a copy of it as
Committee
well.
for Public Safety Fort Worth Police Officers Association has what is called a Political Action Committee, a PAC. They get money deducted from their paychecks at the city of Fort Worth, and that money goes into a Political Action Committee fund, and money then goes to the city council members. Ms. Price got in 2020 $15,000. Mr. Moon got $15,000.
Ms.
Gina
Cox, your
Bivens,
time is
James
up.
Jordan, Kellyanne Gray all got $15,000.
Ms. Cox, your
And
time is up.
This contract was entered not so long after, it was in August of this year, just about the time the city budget came out, and the police officers got their pay raise. Many other
Your time is
departments in
up,
the
Ms.
city
Cox.
had
Your
layoffs.
3 minutes is up.
Okay, but that's it. You see it. We need independent redistricting.
Our next speaker is Tanya Carter. I believe she is here with us. Good evening. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Tanya Carter. This is my first time speaking publicly at a meeting. I would like to address the task force as it pertains to redistricting. If you take in consideration with your findings, from my understanding, it's very limited with the criteria you all had to deal with. If you would consider District 3 and House District 90, which is the neighborhood formerly known as Lake Como, Texas, before gentrification, and how redistricting affects me as an individual. And sitting in the meeting, it was discussed, and from what I can comprehend, it's not based on votes. It's not based on trying to put all Republicans in one district. It's not based on trying to add additional seats for a stronger Hispanic voice. It's just based on equal, separating evenly all of the districts. And I would, if some kind of way, if y'all can figure out under one of those bulletins how y'all can figure out not to chop up Como anymore. We can't be chopped up anymore. And as a result of redistricting, okay, and all of these, what you call them, $12 million housing development grants and everything, in homes way above than the average income of the individual that lives in that neighborhood, is forcing us out. It's forcing people like me out that the average income is $2,000 a month or below. Beautifying the neighborhood with all the trees and revitalizing Corn Street and reimagining Fort Worth and all this, that, and the other with townhomes, condominiums, and everything, shops that people in the neighborhood won't be able to shop in. I think it's a disgrace. I just learned about what y'all just been talking about, an individual review board as it comes to redistricting in order for citizens to have an equal say and X out Madam Mayor and different city council members who may have a vested interest in drawing lines a certain kind of way for their favor or benefit, whatever it is, more standard or their political benefit, whatever it is. I don't like it. I don't have any proof on what I'm saying. All I think I have to do is walk out of my door, off of my porch every day and look around me, and it lets me know what's going on. Como has been a traditionally strong voting bloc in Fort Worth, a traditionally Democratic voting bloc. It has been chopped up, chopped up, chopped up. We have less than $5,000, people in our neighborhood of a traditionally, historically black neighborhood through gentrification. Other people are coming in, and all this old redistricting for Bessie Price to lobby for other businesses to come into the community. That's what all that's for. And now if y'all keep on chopping up, whatever y'all do, just don't touch House District 90 and District 3. Chop up the oven. Go on, put the the inside 820 out 820 back in there and put the leftovers over in there. Don't bother us. We can't.
And then we have Jeff Harper.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Yes, this is Mary Kaiser. You're on the line with the Redistricting Task Force to make your comments.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Jeff Harper. I'm a board member with the League of Independent Voters, and also was a former resident of Fort Worth. I had a property on Hemp Hill there for about 20 years, and so very familiar with Fort Worth politics, and expect to be a resident again before too long. Anyway, one of the things that I wanted to stress was absolutely favor an independent citizens redistricting commission like exists in Austin or something customized for Fort Worth. One of my colleagues worked very closely on the effort to adopt the one in the ICRC in Austin in 2015. And I think if you were to take a consensus view of citizens, I don't think anybody would describe it as a disaster. And I know that her name is Linda Curtis, who co-led the effort with Peck Young and others. This was a joint effort, a very diverse coalition that spanned far right to far left, would stand up and voice support for an independent redistricting commission in Fort Worth. I wrote a lengthy letter that seems to ramble in different directions apart from redistricting, but the key points that I wanted to make in that letter, and the reason I went off on the tangent about the credit limit of the United States and so forth, was to stress the importance of two things. Number one, fair process in government, and number two, a strong safety net. We face some challenges in this nation like we have never faced before. So every time you cast a vote concerning government process,
keep in mind how it will play out in the street. And some of the old insiders games just won't fit the bill anymore. People will resent that. And always appreciate, by the way, one final comment, the goodwill that I've detected Fort Worth officials over the years. I think it's generally a lot of people up there. And Fernando Costas in particular. Great to see Fernando in action again. Okay?
All right. Thank you for your comments.
You bet. Thank you.
Well, thank you much. And I always like to hear what people have to say. That's when you really get when the rubber meets the road, when people come up and express their opinion. That's democracy in action. All right. Are there any other items that we need to discuss beyond our, and to thank everyone that participated tonight and made a statement. That is absolutely great. Mr. Shore?
Yeah, I had one comment, and that is that so far, when it comes down to discussion, we have discussed numerous criteria. We have not discussed procedures. And when I say we have not discussed procedures, there was one procedure that I mentioned in my email that dealt with map making. It was a procedure that was cited by a court in North Carolina, which had dealt with having to remedy some really bad districting. But in sending the redistricting process back to the legislators who had so blatantly gerrymandered the districts, the court basically stated that all of their map-making deliberations had to be done basically in public. We had last meeting, we did have a speaker from the League of Women Voters who had a proposal that would have gone much, much further. And that proposal that she stated was that the council members not even be allowed to talk to anyone about redistricting other than in the public presence. I thought that went quite a bit too far, but I did want to point out that procedures to be followed by the council during the redistricting process have not been discussed yet. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Shore, and you're absolutely right, even though we have tangentially discussed the procedures when we went through them at our first meeting. We talked about them, but I think what we're trying to, the criteria, I think, is the crux of what we needed to get through in order to get to procedure. And I think tonight's session, tonight's 4-hour and 3-minute session, I might add, has helped us get there, I think, pretty much. Anything else? Well, task force, I call you committee, task force. I appreciate everybody's participation. We've got a lot done today. I knew this was going to be a lengthy meeting, but I appreciate your willingness to participate and engage us in discussion, Mr. Williams. And so now that you can go and prepare dinner for Mrs. Williams, I'm sure she will appreciate it. Anything else to come before the task force? Ms. Kennedy? Mr. Bradshaw? Anybody else have anything here in the chamber? Mr. Costa, any closing remarks? Ms. Kaiser?
No, ma'am.
Without that, Our meeting stands adjourned. December 1, guys.